behind the scenes, the light and the flame, designing, producing, creating the name. From the rundown grind to the Emmy stage glory, they shape what we feel. Now tell us your story. Production roles, lights, camera, action. Let's wrap your life with emotion and passion. What's your story?
Hello and welcome into Storyteller at NAB from SiriusXM Studio. I'm Sky Muller, and I am absolutely thrilled to welcome on today's guest, the EVP of Programming and Development at Fox First Run and Fox Television Station, Stephen Brown. Welcome to Storyteller.
Thanks, Sky.
This is going to be a fun one. I mean, just buckle up is all I got to say.
There you go.
Because Stephen Brown has stories. This is Storyteller. And we're going to get into it. He said he's raw and unfiltered, so this is going to be that kind of an episode. We like to crack open the episode, nice cold one, and open up with, you were an English teacher, and then you went on Love Connection as a writer. How does that happen?
You know, I was an English teacher in Greenwich, Connecticut after I graduated from school because I forgot to get a job, and I just kind of fell into that. And then it's interesting. I think that everybody in their life has kind of an epiphany moment, right? So I was at the movie theater and I saw this movie, Witness. And the opening scene, it's a Harrison Ford movie. The opening scene is the Amish rising out of the golden wheat. It's stunningly beautiful. And that was the moment when I thought, I want to be in entertainment. Because I had no idea what I wanted to do before. My mother had said, you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor. Because we're from upstate New York and very provincial. And so I started, because I was an English teacher, I could work for free during the summers. So I worked for a commercial director doing location scouting up in Greenwich, Connecticut, where I was living. And then eventually I left teaching, worked for him, and then for a year. And then his company just kind of folded. So I was a waiter in New York City, doing bad things. It was kind of the dark night of my soul, as I refer to it. And a friend of mine said, do you want to go to California? And I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. It was like this kind of like hand of God reaching down and plucking me out of my darkness. And so I bought a one-way ticket, and I had $400. I had no car, no job, a place to stay for a week. And I went to LA. And I, immediately got did temp work, and interestingly, and I'll get to the Love Connection thing, but interestingly, my very first job was working on the Fox lot as a temp in HR at $6 an hour, and my job was to file all the paperwork for the people who made over $100,000 a year, right? So I'm like, and I'd left a teaching career. I was making like $35,000, which is pretty darn good back in the 80s. And so it was like demoralizing. And I would walk by all of these cars, in front of like the executive building. And I'm like, oh man, one day maybe that'll be me. And now that's where I have my office.
No way.
Yeah. So
That's
it all kind of like, it all came, sometimes it works out. Sometimes life works out. But that is, anyway, so the guy I had worked for, the director, called a friend in LA and said, hey, can you interview this guy? And this will be kind of a recurring theme for this hour. Is like, and he did. He interviewed me. He got me a connection to somebody else. All you need is one voice, right? Mm-hmm. One person to make a call on your behalf or to pluck you out. And I got a job. I interviewed with the producer of Love Connection. So this is before Google. This is before anything else. I did research on this guy, and I saw that he went to Colgate like I did. So I called Colgate, the alumni office, and said, I'm doing research on this guy, but can you give me information? So I found out what fraternity he was in, if he was married, all that kind of stuff. So I went in armed. I was wearing a three-piece suit, right, for production, but I was a kid. And we struck up a conversation, struck up a relationship, and the Colgate connection did work in my behalf, and I did that for a year.
That is awesome. I was just telling you, I did Claude for research for you, and you had to actually physically call Colgate.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of like your route better. I like getting on the phone and calling somebody up. And it's a better. That's so funny, though. So you're a writer then on Love Connection. You're like writing the questions for people to ask.
Oh, yeah.
Everything.
Well, Love Connection, it's interesting. Love Connection, kind of, it was a great learning experience. So as a high school English teacher, you're king of the world. You're a captain of your own ship. You go in, you tell 25 kids, it's like, this is what we're going to do today, and this is what we're going to learn. So, and I thought it was hot shit. And so, and I go, I remember the first script I wrote for Love Connection. It came back just with "this sucks" on it. Now, the executive producer was a notorious dick, right? He was probably one of the meanest, ugliest people in the world. He was 6'4" and like 250 pounds, and he'd get right in your face and say, "You're a fucking idiot." He went through writers like water, right? Every morning, I worked there for a year. Every morning I wake up and I would pray to God that he would die on the way to work. It was like Mean Boss 101. It was so bad. So it informed me, it's like, if you ever get into a position like that, do not be that person. He was so incredibly abusive, but he taught me a lot. That job taught me a lot about the process and about, in a world like divorce court, which now I oversee, there are no, I would say, he would say to me, or the producer would say, there's no, it's either the best date of your life or it's the worst day of your life. There's nothing in between. Anything in between is garbage, right? So you have to manipulate these people in the telling of their date and kind of like back and forth to get it to that emotional peak, because that's what people want to go on. Every story, everything that we do in television is this roller coaster narrative that is just like any story. So you have to kind of pay attention to it and honor what that form is. So
that's really fascinating to think about on the entertainment. I mean, you're in the entertainment industry,
yeah,
and everything in the middle is not entertaining. It's got to be here or here.
Well, think about it, even Instagram posts, right? It's like what makes you stay, what makes you scroll. So stay is like that emotional kind of like jolt. I'm angry, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm whatever. It's giving me this kind of like endorphin rush. Television does that same thing. Films do, poetry does, music does. That's why we listen. If you think about it, it's like if you have a piece of music or a song and you listen to it over and over, it's because it's giving you that feeling over and over. So television, for an episode of Divorce Court, is still on that same. It's going to give you that. That's why people will watch episode after episode after episode. They binge it because it's familiar, or it's giving them that hit they need.
Well, I'll tell you what gave me that hit as a kid: Legends of the Hidden Temple. You knew we were going to get there. This is a selfish question. I always have a selfish question in every show I do. This one was pretty easy, but I mean, that was, as a kid, I wanted to be on this show. Wanted to be a blue barracuda, and
awesome.
I saw there's a pretty good story about
blue barracudas always lost to silver snakes. Silver snakes always won.
I think we have the silver snakes on in the Temple Run right now.
Oh yeah.
Now, take me through the Temple Run on how it became what it is, because I think it's really innovative. You didn't have PTZ cameras. You didn't have all these cameras you could put inside the maze. So like, how did you make this entertaining, and how did it become this form?
In all of the things that I've done in my life, this is probably one of the things I'm most proud of, because when somebody says, imagine something, and then you do, and then you get to see it, and then it becomes part of, the culture, if you will, for a certain generation. So the show was, originally we were developing a show for Universal, using all the Universal monsters. So you had to run through this house and get chased by the Universal monsters. It didn't go anywhere. I think we were trying to sell it to USA. And then my bosses said, hey, let's come up with Nickelodeon. So I came up with this idea of this Mayan ruin, and then all the iterations of the games, how you get across, and this run through the temple, which I freaking love. I mean, they just ran by the silver monkey, so which just destroyed so many 8-year-olds. But But the thing is like to imagine something and think what would be cool, right? So let's build it. And that right here, he's poor kid. That was the fun of it. And then the temple cards, the idea of like the pendant of life, which I still have in
No way,
real,
you do?
yeah. Which I'm sure is like when I run out of money in my age, like I got an authentic one. But as I put it on eBay, and the temple cards who were some of the producers on the show.
Oh, really?
We were all like in our 20s and 30s,
right.
so they're fit. One was not so fit, but still, the idea to jump out and scare the bejesus out of these kids. And some of these kids, I honest to God, I think they wet themselves. They were like, because you're focused and running and trying to do all these tasks. Each room had its own task, and then the temple guards just jump out and scare the hell out of you. It was like an adult's fantasy, but it was really, really cool. And we'd walk these kids. I would walk these kids through these different rooms and say, "Here's what you do here," and it's like. Half the time on the Silver Monkey, they just couldn't put it together.
Well, they're thinking someone's about to jump out.
Oh yeah, it was like, no, don't go downstairs like in your basement because the boogeyman's gonna get you. And those guys, they loved it. They just jumped right out. It was super, super cool.
Really innovative part of this though is how you captured it all, right? And I heard there's a story behind a kind of a wine box that you brought in and was like, here's how we're going to build this thing versus top-down maze. Is there a story there?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it was paper first, and then there's the model of it. But every episode had its own paper kind of trail. Here's how you can get in and out, and where the pendants were. No, not where the pendants were, but where where we put the temple cards. So, but it's great. And we had to change out the rooms and all that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh. So. I mean, it still hits. I could still watch this show today because there's the nostalgic factor, but it's fun watching these kids run through here. And
they did a remake.
That's right. I remember that,
on CW just recently. And I love Scott Stone, who's, he's one of the guys who in my life lifted me up. And gave me a real great opportunity. But and I always think that the kids who could have been on that show, like you, right, at a certain age, the next iteration of that is not an adult version of this, but you take people and you plant them in the, Guatemalan jungle, and you make them cross the river, and you make them, go through an actual temple like this. And really make it scary. But
that's the grown-up version of it. It's the real thing.
But Nickelodeon wanted something, or CW wanted something, or whatever.
I think it's fun because clearly throughout your career you've been developing shows, you've been pitching shows. Was there ever a show that, as you're going through this process of developing and pitching, you're like, this thing's going to die, like it's not going to get there, but it actually got there and it was successful?
Yeah, there was one of my first big breaks after I left the company that did Legends was I had an overall deal with Sony, which was Columbia TriStar at the time, and my job was to take their IP, their game IP, and then create shows based on that. So the first one, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to take Pyramid, $10,000 Pyramid, great IP. Let's redevelop it. So. We did a completely random different version, and we did a pilot for $500,000 and didn't go. I'm like, fuck. So it was like next year. Luckily they kept me on the payroll, so I was next year we're like, let's try it again. We're going to do it a completely different way, sorta. And we tried that $750,000 pilot. It didn't go. So I'm like, shit. So then all right, but I'm still working at Sony, so I get another shot at it, and this time we do a $1 million pilot, and it's beautiful. We built a huge set, and Donny Osmond's the host, and that went. So it took 3 at bats, and over $2 million well over $2.5 million in development costs to get to it. And then that ran for 3 years, and because of syndication and its things, it didn't continue. That's one of those shows that should still be on. It should be a Family Feud kind of thing. But Sony, whatever, didn't work.
Let's get a little bit into Behind the Bill, the show that's been really entertaining for me, and it's a show that has changed the industry, and that's 25 words or less. And it changed the industry because, as I understand, it was the first live syndicated daytime programming. That, I guess, what made that so rare and difficult to pull off that had never been done before?
Syndication's a weird business because when you have a show, it can air in any day part on any up to 198 stations. So it's not like cable or network where it's like it's on at 8 or it's on at 7. It's on whenever it wants to be, whenever the station wants to put it on. So for us, we decided that we were going to try live on our 2 stations that we own, New York and Philadelphia, and then also on Xumo Play. Great partner. So we did it live at 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and with your technology, with tagboard technology, and it's not just getting it out live, because live game shows don't go live because you have judging errors, and you have technological things that break, or a host misreads a question or whatever. So there's all that. And my thought is like, look, we have to differentiate ourselves. It's like, you don't necessarily, some people want that pretty little we shoot 30 minutes and we cut it down to 19 and a half minutes. Okay. Right? That's a big
cut.
And a lot of times it's like, you don't need to have all the ums and whatever and the spaces of the thinking spaces. You can pull that up. But also, so that's kind of the challenge of like, how do you condense that all into something that's still a roller coaster? What we started this whole thing was this emotional roller coaster, right? Yeah. This narrative that we want to go on, and we did it really well. And the thing is, it was not just that it was live, because you could see it warts and all. But at one point we were doing one show over the course of an hour and filling it out with chat with Meredith, chat with the celebrities. Let's show you some behind the scenes with the makeup people. And the audience is like, that's not what I want to see. I want to see game.
Yeah.
So that's the best thing you can do as a broadcaster. Ask your audience, listen to your audience, respond to your audience, right? So, and most of us in this business are so fucking arrogant that we think we know better, or we program for ourselves, and we're not the audience. 9 times out of 10 we're not the audience at all. We're not the people who are at home sitting on their couches or doing whatever they're doing and listen. So we listened and we packed these two games into each hour episode, and it was thrilling. It was more exciting for everybody on the staff, the hosts, because it's quick. And if something broke, you immediately cut to the booth, and it's like you're seeing behind the scenes as the executive producer and the judges are scrambling to figure out what the hell happened, and we're showing a replay. It's like sometimes we have to play it over and over and over again to say, did they say the answer? Did they say it right? Did we fuck up? Yeah. So it's like, it's really it became a great experience for the audience. That's so because cool. Now we're like a sports program. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what it was made me think of, because when you were talking about showing your football game, all right, red challenge flag, now let's go into the booth and they're going to challenge it, and we're going to watch the replay over and over. And
it's like MLB.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Strike balls.
Yes.
It's like, that's awesome. That makes that game so much better. But the other thing is, it's not just now, okay, we're live. But it has to be more than that, right? For years, for the history of broadcasting, we present. News does this. Programming does it. Here it is. We don't engage our audience in a meaningful way. And my premise is that you have to, in a shrinking environment or world, in broadcast where your audience is disappearing, you have to give them a reason to stay with you. So yes, live, always great. Live news, live sports obviously works. So we're going to be that. But we're going to go a step further and involve the audience in a meaningful way in the game and in the conversation. So Meredith Vieira, who's our host, who I love, will say, hey, to the audience, what clues would you have given? So people all over the country are writing in their clues, and then we post it via tagboard up on the screen. And she says, Mary from Dubuque just said, gave this clue. That's really smart, Mary. Now, think about that. Mary now is a super fan, right? She's invested in the show because Meredith called her name and said, that's a great idea. You are part of our community. We all hear that. That's kind of like stupid buzzword. Build a community, community. But it is true. And I think we do that we have a super fan thing where we, set up like a sweepstakes and we bring people in and interview them on the show, ask them, and they root. And then if somebody wins $10,000, they win $1,000. That engenders kind of loyalty. So I think that's part of the live experience. We also have sweepstakes. You can win prizes if you're watching. You also can win money if you're watching. We're betting live now on the outcome of the game.
Really?
Yeah, it's virtual currency. So
That is
don't get crazy. But it's I think we've got to reward the audience for sticking with us.
Yeah.
I think that is paramount, and a lot of times we don't do that. We give lip service to we got to think about what the audience wants and give that to them. Ask the audience, engage the audience, because otherwise it's contemptuous.
Yeah. I think that maybe one of the best quotes I've ever heard on the show was when you said, we asked, then listened, and then responded, because that is so critical, and no one ever follows the response side, right?
Right.
And I guess if you weren't live, you wouldn't have been able to, because you would have had whatever 20 some episode shot. You couldn't have responded because they were all done and shot. But now you can, and I think that's just so fascinating to, like, and you said it's lip service, that everyone's like, well, I am doing it. It's like, no, you're asking, but you're truly not listening, and then you're not responding.
There are other competitors of yours who have like polling devices, right? If you poll your audience, it's, in my mind, it's bullshit, because you don't really care. You're just like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And 50% or 20% said this and 30%. You're not connecting with anybody. You're not saying, Mary, I really appreciate your opinion. It's like, we need to go back to what talk radio was. One of our stations in Detroit is doing that on a sports kind of podcast type thing, and really allowing people to zoom in. Yes, the fans, especially in sports, fans know about sports. They have opinions. That's going to be an animated, energetic thing, and you have to respect them and honor them and bring them in the conversation, rather than some idiot sportscaster saying, "This is what's happening." You don't know. You're an idiot. So,
there are a lot of...
I'm like a very dismissive, but whatever.
But there are a lot of parallels with the sports programming and what you're doing, because, like you said, everyone's got an opinion in sports.
Sure.
But everyone at home thinks they're the best game show player ever, right? As they're watching, they're not under the pressure of the clock and everything.
Yeah.
So you're inviting them in to like flex that knowledge, and then they have skin in the game, and you're rewarding them, which I think is the fun piece there.
I'm not every answer that comes from the audience is like a great answer,
that's right.
but, which is okay.
Yeah.
But the feeling that you can participate, you can be heard, you can be regarded and considered, that has value, and that's important as human beings. I mean, we don't do that enough. We don't engage people in conversations and meaningful. We don't ask people's opinion. What did you think about this? We don't ask them for, advice. We're jabbering. We're a jabbering society right now, and it's bullshit.
So 25 words or less, how has that, is that a blueprint now for some other stuff that you're developing, or how has it unlocked anything, or
That's a unique show. That's a crazy unique show. Yes, live is for sure.
Okay.
I would think that's something we want to do. The problem is now is like, do the stations that are receiving this, do they have the tech to be able to take live in the middle of the day? That's a hard thing to do because stations are cutting people, stations are cutting resources. It's hard to do. And 25 Words or Less specifically as a game show is a very unique show because during COVID, to save everybody, we put Meredith in her basement and shot her from there, and we put everybody in pods separated because remember we couldn't sit next to each other.
You would have had a big plexiglass.
Oh yeah. It would have been just horrible. So, and what we found out is that this view, where you can see every face, is superior to a multi-camera view where you're having the director cut. So think about it. It's like the most important thing that you can see that how we connect with people is by seeing their face and their body movements, right? And their reactions to something. So, and when you have multiple people on a screen, the audience wants to identify with somebody there.
Yep.
I get to have 3 people on the screen, or 6 people on the screen, or 7 people on the screen. Somebody that you as the audience can say, oh, that's just like me. So it makes it a much more relatable. And on that emotional roller coaster, I see that, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat.
You get them both side by side.
I get them both at the same time. So it ended up, we stumbled accidentally into a really cool format. I don't know if I do it for every game show. This specific game show really works that way. But I think live is really important. I know Netflix is leaning into live, and I think they're doing a good job. It's at the end of the day, you still need to have this roller coaster, this narrative roller coaster.
So as we get into a little bit of what we call the production playbook, live is critical. Your show development model, I want to dig into that a little bit because we started with some of these shows from the 90s, and now here we are in 2026 talking live syndication and shows like 25 Words or Less. How has your model changed? What does it look like today of when you go from idea to a greenlit?
Yeah. Usually in the old days, it was, let's do a pilot, right? And then it was like, or even let's do a presentation, then let's do a pilot. Then it's just iterate. Then my boss, Jack Abernethy, came up with this idea. It's like, let's do tests. Because and I agree with him 100%. Any idiot can create a pilot that can sell and look great and sound great and be great. And, you could shoot for 4 hours to get down to this little, 19-minute thing that everybody says, oh my God, it's the second coming of Christ. It's not. So, but if you have to produce 20 episodes, then you really know if you have something. Does the idea work? Does is it producible financially?
Okay.
Does it make sense just as a game, right? A lot of times we'll workshop games and play with games, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. Is it entertaining to watch, right? Does the audience want that? So we for years were doing these 20-episode tests, 15, 20-episode tests on our stations. We put them up on our stations or partner stations and see if it works. Now, I think with syndication slowing down, we're not doing that as much anymore. Now what we're doing is we're developing our model at Fox is developing them at local stations. So the local stations have our stations because we're big booming markets, have the production capabilities to create and produce compelling content, compelling shows. So we look at see how does that do in their market. Is it an idea that can resonate regionally? So then we'll put it into regional markets. So there's a talk show out of Minneapolis. We gave it to Duluth. and then we gave it to Eau Claire, and then we gave it to Sioux City. So it became a regional show, and now it's a national show. Same thing with a cooking show up there. So I think that's our model. Let the stations produce something, and then let's syndicate it out. Now, other syndicators don't do it that way. That's fine. That's their business.
We mentioned earlier the show where it was like $1 million, $750,000. Has it gotten cheaper to produce some of this stuff?
I was on a panel the other day, and I said, there will never be another $20 million, $30 million, $40 million talk show ever. It's just not sustainable. That model doesn't work. With broadcast declining the way it is, it just doesn't do it. So that doesn't mean that talk is dead or game is dead. It means that you have to think about how to produce it in a completely different way, in a more economical way. People love playing games. People wake up and play Wordle every morning. They like games. It's a cool thing. And talk, if you have the right personality, think about all podcasts or talk shows, right? Joe Rogan has the most successful talk show in the country right now. So why can't we put that on broadcast, but not just on broadcast, put it on every platform like we do. Our shows are on every single platform that's out there. It's not just, if you're just on broadcast, you're losing.
And that's the track you spoke on was programming everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the most critical thing in today's audience, right? Of like, we can no longer expect them to turn on their television and come to us. We have to go to whatever their television is, phone, laptop. And so that's your mindset that you have right now.
Yeah. Everything, when YouTube has 13% of all viewing across the board and is the dominant position, it's like, well, then if you're not on YouTube, you're an idiot, right? So put your stuff on YouTube. And we're doing our live shows. We're putting them to YouTube, and we do that with Divorce Court. We do live episodes twice a day on Divorce Court, and we put them to YouTube, and there's huge response. Now, not everybody. It's interesting. Not everybody will watch it live. They will watch the VOD of that. But that experience or that show, because it's fresh, it's that day, it's bread made that day. There's some value to it.
That's really fascinating. And I think just because the budget isn't going to be $30 million anymore, it doesn't mean it doesn't look like that $30 million show used to look like, right? Like, it feels like it's easier to,
it's like on the pyramid example when I was talking about it, I think our set was $1 million. Wow. I'd get fired if I even suggested something like that. So, and I think also with a lot of the tools, the production tools like that, I'm not a big fan of green screen or sets like green screen or LED screen sets yet, especially for game. I think a lot of times when you have real contestants, and there have been, the Israelis have been doing this and to some success, but you ask contestants to sit in a virtual space and imagine this. It's like you can't.
No.
There is, and I think actors are probably the same way. It's like when there's tactile, real stuff around them. So I think you need elements of a set, and you can fill in other parts. But spending $1 million on a set is just idiocy. It is. It's wasteful, and it's not. There's no value in that. I don't think that's really at the heart of it. What we want to be doing.
The things that brought you passion in your profession early in your career to now, are those the same things, or is there new things that when you go to work every day you're like, I love this. This is fun.
So we're in a business that has a 85 to 90% failure rate, right?
That doesn't sound fun.
So, and I've been in like 5 major relationships in my life because I'm hopeful. I'm a hopeful person. I wake up every morning and say, you know what? I'm going to find love today, and I'm going to build an amazing show. So I think that's the eternal I think you have to have, stupidly, eternal optimism. You have to believe it's not working now, but I'm going to figure out in this next iteration, in this next version, how to figure it out, how to make it work. And that's, I think, being nimble and being flexible and being able to change, because we're in a business right now that is undergoing profound change, and it can be depressing and overwhelming and daunting to a lot of people. But I wake up every morning believing that, and not cockeyed optimism, but I think that I'll figure it out. And if it's not this way, I'm going to figure it out another way.
There's an industry that's figured it out. I feel like broadcast production has figured it out for a long time. And so, I'm hopeful as well for the same thing, that they'll continue to figure it out. And I think modern technologies are definitely being a big thing. Have you seen some making it easier with modern technology to do some of these shows?
Yes, I think, certainly using AI in, question generation, things like that, material generation, research. You used Gemini or Claude.
It's a good research, I'll tell you what. Yeah.
Claude to research me. It's like if we're doing a factual-based game show, you can certainly use AI to do research for you. You still have to vet it and all that kind of stuff. The robotic cameras,
Yeah.
100%. Your technology, second screen technology. You think about it, 79% of all people, if they're not watching a dramatic series, are have a second screen in their hand while they're watching the primary screen. So if you're watching a game show, you probably have a screen in your hand. So you click on the QR code, and then you can be immersed in this interactive environment especially if we're doing it live. So there's value in that as well.
I think what I've heard so far today, and why I think there's so much reason for optimism, is you've always listened to the audience and responded to them and adapted, and it continues on. 25 words or less is a great example of that, and I'm sure you've got a bunch more in the works here coming out pretty soon,
God willing.
But on your journey, you mentioned someone that wasn't a mentor in your first job, but did you have anybody that you wanted to shout out, anybody that has helped you along the way that you want to give their flowers to?
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. I speak a lot to college students.
Okay.
Right. I go back to Colgate, where I went to school, and I say kind of my two rules: as you're coming up, always surround yourself with people who are smarter and more talented than you are, because if you're in that crowd, they'll lift you up. You just by nature, your competitive nature will lift you up. Beyond that, always find a mentor. And it's like Marshall Stone, who was the commercial director, who lifted me, pulled me out of teaching, right? And gave me that opportunity and made that first connection for me. Scott Stone, who was my first, the guy who gave me the opportunity to create Legends of the Hidden Temple and Shop Till You Drop, and taught me a lot about production. It was like it was hard, but it was good. Melanie Chillick, who gave me my first overall deal at Sony, who believed in me and really supported me for a long time. And then Jack Abernathy, who's my boss now, is like, and I've been, he's been my boss for 21 years. And all of these people have alternately terrorized me, but supported me and loved me and lifted me up. And I think you've always got to find somebody who will do that, because you can't get there. Very rarely can you get there on your own. It does help for you to model yourself on somebody, but also for them to kind of lift you up and protect you when you need to be protected, guide you when you need to be guided, and support you.
That's amazing. I think that just made me think back. Some of my best coaches I felt like in life were some of the ones that were the hardest on me, but at the same time, they'll wrap their arms around you when you need it the most and pick you up and carry you forward. And so to have that balance is critical.
Yeah, everybody remembers their teachers, right?
Yeah,
From high school. It's like the one that kind of paid attention to you. I mean, people still call me Mr. Brown when I was
I love
for
it.
my teaching day. One of our competitors, as a matter of fact, I'll do a shout out to him. John Butkins is the head of CBS Ventures, right? He was my high school student.
No way.
He's my competitor, but now he was my student at one point. So it's like, it's nice how it all. He doesn't call me Mr. Brown anymore.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. That's a good story to end on.
Yeah.
Stephen Brown, EVP of Programming and Development at Fox First Run and Fox Television Stations. Thanks for coming on Storyteller. Raw and unfiltered. It was some of the best stories I've heard. So thank you.
I appreciate it, Sky. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.